So, picture this. It's the late 90s, and the Escort had been around since the late 60s, and by 98, it was tired. It was a relic. Then, at the Geneva Motor Show in 1998, Ford pulled the covers off something that made the entire industry stop and stare. So, whether you're a die-hard fan or just someone who appreciates automotive history, this is everything you need to know about the Ford Focus. It's wild to look back at the late 90s and realize just how much of a gamble Ford took. While everyone else was playing it safe, they went bold with the new Edge design. It was a love it or hate it look back then, but honestly, it's aged way better than some of its rivals. But the real magic, the secret sauce as you put it, was what they did with the chassis. Most compact cars back then were using cheap torsion beams that felt like pogo sticks over bumps, but this had a multi-link rear suspension. Ford actually gave us a premium handling setup at a budget price. Under the hood, things got even more interesting, especially depending on where you lived. Europe got those fantastic Zetec SE engines that Yamaha helped develop, with the 1.6-liter being the absolute peach of the lineup. Over in North America, we mostly saw the 2-liter versions, which was a total tank. Of course, we also had to deal with the base 2-liter SPI engine, which was less great, mostly because it had a nasty habit of dropping valve seats and ruining your day. Still, the car was a global smash, even taking home the 1999 European Car of the Year award and totally overshadowing the Opel Astra. Then they really turned up the heat because we got the ST170, or the SVT in the States. They actually sent that engine to Cosworth for high-flow heads and VVT, pairing it with a 6-speed get-drag gearbox. It was a classic momentum car that rewarded you for driving it hard. But the absolute legend was the Imperial Blue RS. With only 4,501 ever made, it was a 212-horsepower turbo monster with a limited slip diff. It didn't have traction control or safety nets. If you floored it on a rough road, it would fight you for the steering wheel. It was essentially a rally car with a license plate. I'm curious though, do you think this was the best-looking hatch of the 90s? Or was the design a bit too out there for you? So, after the Mark I became such a massive hit, how do you follow that up? Well, if you were in Europe, you got a masterpiece. And if you were in North America, man, it was kind of a tragedy. It launched in Europe in 2004. And it moved to the C1 platform, which was a huge deal because it shared DNA with the Volvo and the Mazda. It was also built like a tank, earning a perfect 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating. The Zetec engines were now rebranded as Duratex, with the 1.6-liter TI VCT being the sweet spot, and those TDCI diesels started dominating the motorways. Now, for my North American friends, I'm sorry, Ford decided it was too pricey to bring over the new C1 chassis. Instead, they took the old Mark I bones and gave it a refresh. And also, there was no hatchback. Back in Europe, things were getting spicy because for the Mark II ST, it got a 2.5-liter turbocharged 5-cylinder engine. It put out 225 horses, and honestly, it's one of the best-sounding hot hatches ever. It wasn't quite as raw as the original RS, but as a daily driver, it was world-class. But Ford wasn't done. In 2009, they went absolutely mental and decided to build a new RS. They targeted 300 horsepower, and everyone told them they were crazy because it was front-wheel drive. And just before they killed the Mark II, they released the RS 500. 345 horses, matte black, only 500 ever made. It's the holy grail for collectors now. Oh, and we can't forget the Focus CC. It was a hardtop convertible, designed by Pininfarina. Sure, the rear end looked a bit extra because it had to hide that giant folding roof. And yeah, the early ones were known to leak a little, but it was still a pretty stylish cruiser for its time. It's just wild to see the gap between the European and American models during those years. 2010, Ford finally had a light bulb moment, thanks to their new CEO. He looked at the fact that the US and Europe were essentially building two totally different cars. So he launched the One Ford strategy to build one world-class Focus and sell it to everyone. When it arrived in 2011 on the new Global C platform, it felt like it had leaped forward a decade. This was also when the EcoBoost engines took over. That tiny 1-liter 3-cylinder was a total marvel. The engine block was so small it could fit on a piece of A4 paper, yet it was punchy enough to win International Engine of the Year multiple times. In the States, we mostly saw the 160 horsepower 2-liter GDI, which was a decent enough daily driver for most people. But we have to address the elephant in the room, the power shift transmission. This is the massive dark cloud over the Mark III's reputation. They used a dry dual-clutch setup to save weight, but in stop-and-go traffic, it was a disaster. It ended up causing massive class-action lawsuits globally. But on the bright side, the Mark III ST finally went global. It traded the old Volvo 5-cylinder for a 2-liter EcoBoost pushing 252 horses. But the real mic drop was the 2016 Focus RS. This thing was a supercar killer for about 40 grand. It had 350 horsepower from a 2.3-liter EcoBoost and could hit 60 miles per hour in under 5 seconds. It was also an all-wheel drive, but not a boring one. It used a GKN Twinster setup with clutch packs that could send 100% of the rear power to a single wheel, which is how we got the legendary drift mode. Was it a bit of a gimmick? Maybe. Was it the most fun you could have in a hatch? Absolutely. When it dropped in 2018, it honestly felt like the car had reached its final form. Built on the brand new C2 platform, it managed to shed nearly 200 pounds. But man, for those of us in North America, this is where the story gets really depressing. In a move that still stings, Ford decided to kill off almost all their traditional cars in the States to focus purely on trucks and SUVs. We were originally supposed to get the Focus Active, that rugged, crossover-style version imported from China, but trade tariffs got in the way, and Ford just pulled the plug on the whole thing. Over in Europe, the Mark IV really moved upscale. Interestingly, they got a bit strategic with the suspension this time around. The base models actually went back to a simpler twist-beam rear end to save some money, while the higher trims and the wagons kept that fancy independent setup. Then you had the ST, which was a total beast. It borrowed a detuned version of the old RS's 2.3-liter engine, pumping out about 276 horses. And then, in 2020, Ford officially broke our hearts. The RS is dead. Between the brutal European emissions regulations and the massive costs of developing a high-tech hybrid system for such a niche car, the math just didn't work out. And guys, this is the really heavy part of the story. As of late 2025, it's officially over. After 27 years and 4 generations of being one of the best handling family cars on the planet, the nameplate is retiring. There's no direct replacement coming either. Just a total shift towards electric SUVs like the new Capri and Explorer. It's the end of an era, plain and simple. So, what do you think? Was the Focus the best hatchback of all time? Here's what I think. It was certainly the most transformative. As we move towards crossovers that all feel vaguely the same, we're going to miss the Focus.